Okay.
Very good. I am here. My name is Corey Goldstein, and I'm here with a very dear friend and extraordinary human being on the planet, Mr. Frank Talbert. Frank has the just an enormous wealth of wisdom, knowledge, opportunity to share. He's a man that I've been fortunate to know and just adore. And I appreciate you being here today. And Frank, and thank you for doing always the heavy lifting.
My
And
pleasure. It's always
and
fun with you.
that's great. You want to share just like a brief moment who you are so people can get a sense as to who in the
Sure.
world are these crazy guys wearing, similar clothes and
Well, first of
anyway.
all, you and I have switched places. I grew up in North Carolina, you in Chicago. I'm in Chicago, and you're in South Carolina. So, anyway, I started out life in Charlotte as an architect, um, traveled around overseas for a number of years, made my way to Chicago a few decades ago, and was an architect, had my own firm, which I sold in 2016. And since then, I have been in the business that's hard to put a name on. I use my architectural background, and I I like to help out people who have projects that are complex, very complex. They may have some difficulty. They may even have some legal or financial challenges. I find that um, the combination of my years of work um, around the world and around the country adds up to me doing that sort of thing. And so that's a brief explanation of who I am.
Yeah, and it's very brief because you have helped develop well over 3 million square feet of real estate around the world. You have worked with presidents, you have worked with governments, you have worked with um, just so many people, and your specialty, if you would say you had a specialty in the real estate world, what would you say that would be?
Well, there's a couple of them. I think um, one that we're going to talk about today
Mm,
is entitlement, that is zoning. Um, I've experienced it in a number of different jurisdictions around the world and around the country. I'd say second to that is probably projects in distress, projects that um, are going to be lost and a big loss for someone if they don't get back under control. Um, I come in and just take the bull by the horns and sort
yeah.
them out.
As an example, I know for a fact, this you had 160 acre project in the southeast that was swirling the drain and had contractors involved and people that did faulty construction work, and there was multi-millions of dollars of lawsuits, and the
Yes.
city involved, and inspectors involved, and fraud involved,
Yep.
and you were able to turn all that around, make it right, bring integrity where it was missing, and have the condominium owners basically fall in love with you.
Well, what
For
happened was this condominium complex on the Gulf Shore was hit by a hurricane. It was a fairly
Yeah,
large complex, and uh, in this case, in a condominium association, there's no one that's usually very familiar with developing projects. So they got their big insurance check, and it either went out the window part of it or it went into really bad construction. The fire marshal was going to shut the place down. I was brought in, and basically, just by being really clear and honest about where things stood with the city and with the condominium owners, I was able to uh, get through a path that everyone could sign off on. Um,
mm,
and it just took being super clear, knowing what I was doing. This isn't my first project, and just being very clear, not trying to hide anything from anyone. So
Yeah,
it serves
yeah,
the only way to do it.
yeah. And this is make no mistake what Frank and I like my my Tony Robbins hat here, huh? Pretty cool. Uh, what Frank is speaking to is not for the faint of heart. It involves litigation. It involves um, brass balls to step into something like this. It involves tens of millions of dollars. It involves insurance companies, and you've been an expert witness a
Yeah,
number of
this
times.
being around projects that are in distress. By that I mean the banks cutting off funding, or the one of the parties in the construction and design is uh, not able to account for all the money they've received, or not following the contract, and it's going south fast.
Yeah.
Um, what I do is step in and sort that all out, and it's going toe to toe with people sometimes, and it's persuading people sometimes. Um, but it always comes back to saying what's so, which is something you and I have shared, and I learned a great deal about from you.
Well, getting to the what so of it all, it really clears up everything, and it's as if people don't do complete work. I've been guilty of that in the past, and today, you got to go like all the chips in, all the way through the other side, and you really have to have more information than government, because government employees and municipalities and people that have influence over zoning regulations really don't have a lot of knowledge of working knowledge. Many of them are new. Many of them, here's the book, let's follow the book.
Yep.
And this is very, very interesting. And so what we're going to thank you for sharing. And, I really want to have people be left with Frank. Frank was taught by some of the leading architectural grandfathers in medical architecture and creating medical architecture. And you've been responsible for hospitals in many places of the country, building
Yes.
them, developing them, putting them together, turning things around. So this is a gift. It's always a gift to talk to you. I just love and
Likewise.
adore you, and Frank also, has an extraordinary capacity to bring community and governments together, unlike other people that I've ever seen. And he's got an approach. And so, why I wanted to have this call and what I want this Zoom is to leave everybody with who this man is, who he is for projects that can be turned around. And we're going to actually work on a project that we're working on together. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, so
Yeah.
let's get into it. Let's get into that.
Okay. So I think while I don't do I have kept my architectural license, and I'm very proud of it. I worked very hard to get it. Um, the one thing that, even though I don't practice a great deal, I still use those skills. And what we're dealing with today is a common thing that pops up in the world of development and real estate, and that is when you've got a good idea and you got a piece of property. Well, the paper's blank. Okay, the page is blank, and I'm often amused to hear people opine about the cost of construction, and then this and the that of the project when there's nothing drawn yet. And we can't get to the bottom of things until we get them on paper, because I say paper, other people might say on a screen, but until the lines are drawn and decisions are made based on the lines drawn, everyone's just guessing. So what we're doing today is trying to bring parameters and possibilities and options. I'm, I'm, I've done a deep, deep dive into this particular project, front end. This is an entitlement zoning question before us today, and it's an interesting one. The this is something, Corey. It's a property in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and there's different schools of thought in city planning, and one that is emerging in the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years, but it's been ongoing since the late 80s. Zoning is usually something that's called prescriptive. It says you can do this here or you can't do this here. Okay, you can have a warehouse, but you can't have a residence. That's prescriptive zoning, and it has to be X square feet, and it has to be Y feet from the street setback. Anyone with any experience in this will recognize the truth of that. Well, starting in the 1980s, there was something invented down in a town called Seaside, Florida, called form-based zoning. That is, city planners and people in this world began to feel that the prescriptive traditional zoning did not serve the needs that were begin to be a priority, like climate change, like shifts in population, like retaining agricultural use as agricultural use, that we were beginning to see suburban sprawl. And people began to agree that this thing called form-based zoning might be the answer. And I'll explain briefly what that is. Form-based zoning, it still has some aspect of we only want it this big, or we only want this, we have to have this many parking cars, but it's much more about the friendly walkability and
Mm,
environment and scale
mm,
that a building has. And it says we don't care that a retail shop is next to a residential use. What we care about is the way that they are designed, complement each other, and encourage people not to get in their cars and drive to another parking lot, from one parking lot to another parking lot, but begin to create an inviting environment in terms of scale, in terms of architectural texture, and that's what they mean by form. The building form is inviting, and it's complementary one to another, much more so than we like retail here, but we don't like residential here.
mm.
Okay.
So I would put it as the user experience.
Yes, the user experience, the resident experience, the pedestrian experience, how the building meets the ground, and how it relates to other buildings next to it. If you just Google pictures of Seaside, Florida, this is where it all began. And I happen to know
Mm,
that because a friend of mine here in Chicago was on the team that invented that. And I had
amazing.
some inside information. Well, what we're dealing
What
with
year was
this,
that, Frank?
that was in the early 1980s. Okay.
Yeah.
And if people just go and look for images of Seaside, Florida, you'll get that, wow, they really did consider, they set the rules around the architecture. And you and I had a conversation about 10 days ago when I was first dipping my toe into this zoning code. And I said to you, wow, whoever wrote this zoning code had a lot of time on their hands. And then I got into it and I realized, well, I'm the one who's uninformed here because North Carolina made it possible for jurisdictions in their state laws to rewrite their zoning ordinances to follow form-based zoning.
Mm,
And so Hendersonville among others, I imagine, in North Carolina, and I know others around the country since I've looked into it, have all but scrapped their prescriptive zoning, and they have created what is called a uniform um, use code. And what is the traditional zoning code has become full of architectural dimensions, full of architectural detail. It's quite something to take on because, you know, what we asked of zoning generally before was, okay, how big can my building be? What use can it be? How much parking does it have to have? And how far does it have to be from the street? You know, what's the floor built ratio to the land ratio? It was all kind of pretty general. Well, now it's gotten very, very, very specific. And it's an attempt to create a vision through what they call a comprehensive plan. That is, they take a look at what assets they have in their city and they say, okay, how can we create a code that incorporates zoning, that incorporates some of the building code, that incorporates some of the engineering codes, and kind of all in one package begin to create a city environment, a planned environment that's much more walkable, much more usable, and not so oriented towards cars. And in Hendersonville, they've done a tremendous, tremendous amount of work, and they've landed the fish, as far as I can tell. They have landed this monster through a very, very detailed, uniform code that ties together some of the zoning aspects along with the architectural, what we would refer to as an architectural review, and it's all quite detailed. What we're looking at today is a multifamily development, which is along a corridor in Greenville, um, a North Carolina highway called Greenville Highway. And they've given us some options. The first one I'm going to look at today is one that stays within the lane, the by right use lane. And what that says
Okay.
is,
And before you move on, just so people get what by right is, right? Can you briefly explain what a by right use is?
yeah, when the code says, if in this case, if you can build, this is called Greenville Highway Mixed Use Development District. Okay. And if you can build, it has a list of uses of which multifamily is an allowed use. And if we can build within a height of 4 stories and a floor plate that does not exceed 12,000 square feet, um, and you can comply with our landscape rules and our setback rules, then by all means, submit it and go write it. You know, create your site plan. We'll review it in zoning, but you're going to go right to building permit if you meet all those requirements. Um, if,
So I'm
however,
just gonna hang on one moment because I'm just going to like point to what you said
okay,
because right, I'm guilty of this too, which is, lawyers have their own terminology, dentists, doctors have their own
yep,
terminology, experts have their own terminology. So a floor plate is the actual square footage on an individual floor.
yep,
So if on 4 stories at 12,000 square feet, we're looking at a 48,000 square foot building.
right.
Yeah,
And
right.
another word people use is footprint, the footprint of the
Footprint.
building.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and a site plan is a plan that addresses, how would you sum
It
up the
addresses how the building is situated on the site and begins to comply with things like driveways, parking, area of the building as compared to area of the parcel of land. Those are traditional points that you touch, and how far it sets back from the property line. Those are the conventional things that you start with looking at. And we're going to
Sure.
go a little more complicated with some ideas that we had. But I've discussed several options with Corey on this property. Um, and I'm going to go back to ground zero um, with the first piece we looked at, because I want to inform you on even the floor plan that I gave you before. We're going to have in the without having to go to the conditional use. That is, without having to go the extra mile of getting extra approvals when we are no longer by right, when we are exceeding some of those uh, basic issues. Okay. Let me pull that up. You may have to edit some of this out, Cora. Hang on.
And some of the things that you're pointing to are square footage, for example.
Yes.
If we have a if we have a by right use of 40 feet or 48,000 total square feet, although the economics, in order to make the project viable, may require more units.
Yep.
So
That's right.
this would be an exception to that. And those standards that are outlined from the site, from land development, from setback requirements, and all those features, and would need to be complied with and mitigated in advance.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Hang
the
on.
possibility of submission, right? Well, I
Yep.
don't, who knows? I was going to say the possibility of submission and having our plan fly right through. Okay, I mean, I like that idea, but I'm waiting to hear what you have to say about that.
Yep. Okay.
You have permission to share.
Okay. Let me turn
Yeah.
this around. I took a quick screenshot. So
Okay.
something on my drawing board. Hang on. Okay, so if we go back to the plan that we were originally looking at, zoom back in here.
You want me to pull that up?
There we go. Okay. I've got it as large as I got it. You can see it on my screen. So,
Okay.
um,
Can you put it on the
oh,
screen?
I'm sorry. I need to probably share that, don't I?
Yeah, yeah, I've got multiple participants shared.
Let's
Check.
see.
Yeah. As we're waiting for this, I have my special Mike Tyson t-shirt on for everybody here because everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Uh, and in development or real estate in general at a basic level, it's a business not for the faint of heart. This takes something to get done, and having experts to navigate through these very shark infested waters makes a difference. Otherwise, you're going to get your tushy bit, and you're not going to like it.
There's a lot of money at stake in any of these things. Are you able to see my screen now?
No.
Okay. I said share, so let's see what is going on. Share this screen. There we go.
All right.
Okay.
Great.
So I had to, I'm doing this by hand because I'm of a certain age. So where my cursor is, I don't know if you can see it, the 338 down there, that's Greenville Highway. That's the front of the building, the large frontage of the building. But
Mhm.
it's a full block long. On left and right are streets that are perpendicular to Greenville Highway, which is at the bottom. Okay. And
Mhm.
I initially started with the number of units I could get on the ground floor. And it's a little dark, but I don't know if you can see there's a
See your mouse.
stair here, and
Uh-huh.
there's exit stair here, which is I know is building code. We have to have two exit stairs. And this is a long, you can see the ratio length to depth is roughly 2 to 1 or a little more even.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to come back to this because as I dug more into the standard zoning, the by right zoning, there is a graduated setback from the side street. It's 0 in the front,
Ah,
okay, even though the
okay.
planners don't love that, and I don't love it either. This is all green space right now. These are all, this is a draft. This is an early design sketch. So if it looks a little rough, that's just how we start. This would be the lobby of the ground floor. This is the
Hmm.
parking, which they require to be in behind the building. It's a convention that I think comes along with the form-based zoning we discussed, where it's not lovely walking by a parking lot. So
Right.
people, jurisdictions like to see or care about how buildings appear, like to see the
In front
parking
of the
lot
road.
behind the building. Okay,
That's
and they
well,
have.
that's consistent with that as lived experience, right?
That's right.
As you're driving down the highway, the last thing you want to see or is traveling down the road along the 338, which heads just a couple blocks to the left, which would this case be, I believe, the east. That would be going to downtown. You would actually uh, see vehicles. In this case, you're going to see green space, maybe a waterfall feature, maybe some a ground leveling and some concrete landscape blocks and bricks.
Yep. So my first drawing I did, you can see this outer line here, this particular line here. This is the
Yeah.
setback, side yard setback from this property line. This property
Hmm.
line, this was, I was going by this setback, which is 25 feet from the uh, property line.
Hmm.
As I read more into the ordinance, that only applies for the first 2 floors. At the third floor, we have to go back another 5 feet.
Okay.
And at the fourth floor, my arrow's in the wrong place. The fourth floor should be right here. The fourth floor, we have to be back yet another 5 feet, which
Right.
means my stair no longer works. I have to either do some really unattractive um, acrobatics with the stair, which I don't like, or lose an end unit, one
Right.
bay of an end unit. Okay, if on the sort of wedding cakes back. Now there's other news here that's a challenge, even on the by right use, and that is since we are on a corner, we have to be 150% of this setback. So
Mhm.
this would be somewhere
Mhm.
in this range because
Right.
we're on 2 corners.
Right. So
So
that's 6 units maybe.
yeah, and suddenly to comply with the by right zoning, we're losing a lot of square footage. Now, are we losing cost to construct? Yes, but we're also losing top line rent roll revenue with their
Yeah.
rental units, and having to really cut back. And I haven't run the numbers honestly, but my gut tells me uh, it's worth running the numbers on. But it begins to get such a small foot floor plate, and our unit counts start going down. Um, I think it's another reason to look at the conditional use permit.
Mm.
Um, Once
Or
we run the numbers.
what are your thoughts? So a conditional use, or what about a variance?
Um, a variance, as I read this uh, zoning ordinance, a variance, they encourage the conditional use because they look at the site as a whole. And they say, okay, the conditional use was invented, if you will. It was written into this code to allow us to take the form-based route exclusively. Okay. And they're willing to look at the site and the building as a whole, even though we wouldn't comply with a number of things. A variance would be a very narrow look at this
Got it.
and would be actually, in my opinion, a more difficult route.
Yeah. Mm.
Uh, they're inviting us, the way they write this, they're inviting us to go a conditional use, that is, to go strictly form based, because my idea, as you know, let me pull up, was when I first got a few days of looking at this, I wanted to have us look at this as um, a larger building. I felt like this site was asking for a larger building. And let me see if I can find it here. This doesn't show it on the site yet, but something that before we had just the bottom, I'll call it a single loaded. If you're on a corridor, the way we talk about a corridor is either single loaded or double loaded. This site plan that we had earlier, hang on, is single loaded. This is the corridor on the outside of the building, okay? Because that's all 12,000 square foot footprint would allow us to do. But if we start looking at a conditional use approach, um, the we could build a corridor with units on both sides and then have the this built on top of a parking deck, and we would double the revenue. We would increase the cost, of course, but is it accretive to profits? I learned that because I managed the unit of a publicly traded company. And when they buy companies, it costs something to buy a company, but you don't want to just add its revenue for the cost you paid for it. It wants to be accretive, meaning there wants to be more of a spread than just trading dollars. And
Hmm.
that's the next exercise, I believe. But my gut tells me this number of units asking to say, look, we are going to put this on top of a pedestal of parking. It will create less pervious area. What that means is less pavement. Okay. There'll be more green
Uh,
space on this site, even though we're building more units by putting it on top of parking deck. we actually end up with more green space. And that is worth looking at because even though we will go through a process in zoning that's pretty extensive to prove our case, to prove that we meet the form-based criteria, it's a longer, more uh, exhaustive look at what we're doing, but
Hmm.
they are predisposed to allow people to do something like this in the conditional zoning and the form-based zoning than if we were to ask for a simple variance.
Okay, I'm looking for an example of what you're speaking about, and just looking online as to, uh, and I thought I was going to find something very simple, um, but would this be? Let me show you this real quickly.
Okay.
Um, so this one here, right?
Hang on, let me get back to you.
These are these are clearly apartments above or condominiums above and parking underneath.
Correct. That's right.
It's very 1960s,
Yep.
as
And
a look to it.
yeah, and the difference is in, we would have parking there as a use, but we would put a facade on it that would make it appealing
Mm, mm.
and you'd never know it was parking.
So this could theoretically be the back of this property.
Correct. That's right.
Gotcha. So this would be the exterior corridor,
Yep.
right? Probably be enclosed, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it would we would actually see building there.
Right. Yeah,
And
building, right? This would
yep.
be behind the building, right? What we see behind, and then another story or more. And then were you thinking about one level of parking plus parking over here?
Ground plus a level, a structured level, one structured level would get us, we can get up if they will allow us, um, if they will allow us this many, we can get up to 90. We're going to go from somewhere like 20 some units um, to 90 if they will allow us. And I was doing some extensive reading in the, I'll pull up the diagram I sent you last night,
Yeah.
which is,
The uh, the entitlement schedule.
yep,
Okay.
let me see if I can find it here.
I could bring it up.
Yeah, maybe.
See this one here.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
So I had to really dig into um, what do they ask for when we're going to double the units that are normally allowed, and we're going to go 150% of the height that's normally allowed, and we're going to be in those setbacks that you first saw in the first rough drawing. What does
Hmm.
it take to get that done? And these are the various steps, which include pretty extensive early design work to prove up it's what they expect. They want us to meet with the neighbors. Anytime there's uh, a building being built in zoning that does not comply with the by right use, there's a variance or there's some exceptions. There's almost always a public hearing or
Yeah.
um, where people who live around it or close to it come and object to it or agree with it. One of the things they do here is they codified a meeting with the neighbors. Anyone that lives within 400 feet of our property line, we must go and show them what we're proposing, persuade, and actually we're expected to negotiate with the neighbors while we're there. Okay. And
Great.
zoning officials are there. It's something I see a lot of developers skip over because they don't want they think they're just going to ram it through and sometimes, a lot of times they do. But here it's a
Mm,
actual part of the requirement that we
beautiful.
notify the neighbors and invite them and present. And there's a mediator there from planning to get us to a final plan that we can both agree to, which is where we submit right here.
Mm,
Then the planning staff uh, reviews it, and under these are the bullet points: completeness for adherence to the comprehensive plan, to the what used to be the zoning ordinance is now called the Unified Development Ordinance. Any technical points that they think we may need to address, and they will talk to us informally while they're putting this review together. Then they issue a formal report, and it will be advisory. It'll say, we advise the planning board, which will be the next step, that this is in compliance and really looks good, or we believe these adjustments should be made, or we don't think like it the way it is, it needs major rework. With that, we would get that a few days after the planning board, but we have about 10 days to see what their report says. We'll have a good idea anyway. And then we go before the planning board, which only meets in Hendersonville once a month. That lengthens our schedule quite a bit. Most jurisdictions, they meet twice a month, but they only meet once a month. I would anticipate at least 2 meetings in front of the planning board. And residents are invited as ever. Residents come and they're invited and encouraged to speak. Some will speak for it, some will speak against it. Um, but it's where um, after 1 or 2 meetings, and they get lengthy and they go late at night, uh,
right.
they will make a vote. And in this case, it's an advisory vote that goes to city council. Um, and in city council, before the city council, we have similar hearings and we've made adjustments or we've said, no, we like where we are, whatever we determine. Um, and it's a very similar hearing that we had before the planning board.
Right.
And hopefully we've played our cards correctly and negotiated and come up with a plan that works for everyone. And they vote yes, or they don't deny it. Typically, they send it back down for us to negotiate again. Okay.
Hmm.
We don't want to eat that time up. So we want to come here with a plan that works, that we feel good is going to pass. And then they ask us, it's very quite formalized, this process. They ask us to, once we have a city council approval, to um, formalize to anything that was negotiated. We formalize it in the drawings and give it back to them. And one of the things that's important for us, you and I, to discuss is they have a very short period of time between this approval and being granted a building permit, only 6 months. And that's short because I would anticipate the building permit review to take 3 months or so. So it means we're going to have to be advancing drawings, particularly in this period as we get more comfortable with our approval. The technical submission for a building permit is going to have to come pretty quick
Hmm.
and more than usual. I think we're allowed to ask for a extension as long as the 6 months hasn't expired, but they also require us to be done with construction within 18 months, uh, which
Okay.
includes the building permit period. Um, So, and
That's short.
yeah, it is. And so I cut the time frame off right here at my estimate, and I allowed some padding was 40 weeks for this conditional use. It would be about half that for if we didn't go this process. Um, but it would,
We
under approval, we'd have a financially a more attractive project. Uh, in the physical realm of the world of building, it would be a more attractive project. Um, it's a ton of work. It's proving your case, but I like that it helps that they've codified every step with what we have to present, what we have to do, and the fact that we're not putting a driveway onto Greenview Highway means
Mhm.
that we're not going to deal with the North Carolina Department of Transportation. In the lower left, I built what I see as the team
Okay,
for this.
right.
Um, and it was typical of the architect, civil engineer, landscape. There's going to be a heavy landscape component on this one. Um, the I think it's always advisable to have, even if they don't say a word, have your attorney sitting in through some of these meetings, not as an adversarial position, but just to record what's going on and make sure everyone's following the rules. Um, right down here, um, civil engineer, because um, how the building meets the land, we're going to have to figure out when we end up. See, the challenge here is when we end up with an approval, it wants to be more than a cartoon. It wants to be something that's right away buildable, which means we're going to have to have done a fair amount of technical due diligence during the zoning process because we don't want to have to come out with just a cartoon that hasn't
Mm.
been studied from a technical standpoint because we're just going to be right back in front of them and say, "Oops, the topography doesn't work. We need to re-ask for what we already asked for."
Gotcha.
So that's the that's the nuts and bolts of it.
Wow. So absolutely outstanding. Outstanding work. Unbelievable way to dig into the code. Unbelievable way to chunk it down into how do you eat an elephant, right?
Yeah,
One bite at a
yep,
time.
that's right.
This is that elephant.
That
And
diagram actually took me a while to put together.
there's no doubt about it. That is, you basically have taken their entire process and have brought it into a document, a usable document that they don't even have.
Right, that's right.
And so this is great. 40 weeks is the
I
time
think it's
frame.
possible to pull that down depending on, how busy the firms are that we engage. Can I put in the maximum 21 days for the neighbors? We can do it within a week or 2 weeks potentially. So there are ways
Yeah.
to shave this down. I never like to start with assuming the fastest schedule.
Yeah. I actually find it really enjoyable to walk and knock on doors
Yep.
and meet people. And
Yep.
this municipality may want to say, well, you can have a Zoom call. My preference is always one-on-one. Uh,
100%.
People one-on-one, great. People in groups, not so great,
Right. Right.
potentially. Um, and um, and so, because there's always people that will say, I really love your projects, amazing, fantastic. And then they'll be the first people to say, I don't want this thing next to me. I don't want the traffic next to me. How dare you build it in this? I'm
Yep.
sick of tired of developing in this area. This area has grown up and exploded, and the last thing we need is more. Uh, what's interesting as you've done your study on this property, things in the area have developed, and there
Yes.
is a major shortage of these types of units 55 plus, potentially 55 plus units, there's a shortage of over 1,000 in this small town.
Yes.
And that is a very interesting, and to be able to potentially impact that number by 10% almost with one project, uh, could be a major feather in their cap. And they, of course, are interested in making sure that, as you pointed to, all the design elements are there, all of the
Yes.
setbacks are, and are required, that they get all of their dream list addressed, which they're going to have a
Yes.
dream, they're going to have a dream list.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. Really, really fantastic. So I can identify all the people within 400 feet of the property, and I can probably get that done by Tuesday.
The
And
That'd be great. The first step is a meeting, a pre-application meeting with the director, community development director, whoever, the guy you've been talking to, whoever
right,
he reports to have a meeting with, and it's a, it wants to have a certain amount. From my experience, they say in there, it can be conceptual, but we want to have enough certainty in it that we're not looking like we're making major changes along the way. So I want it to be a little more than conceptual, but we can get a thumbs up. Yeah, we can support something like this, or can you shave, one floor off, or get some direction. They've really thought this through, and what looked like it was going to be a very difficult process. Actually, they've thought it through. They've done a terrific amount of work to make it something that is followable and that they can point to, and we can all agree that's the way we're going to take this. And starting with that community development director, we don't have to invest a ton of money just to get a quick read uh, on his thoughts.
great, absolutely. So you've just been sharing. So I'm not speaking to you. I'm talking to people watching this thing. You've just have witnessed what is required to get a piece of property rezoned, changed, entitled, and set for development. So the curtain has been pulled back here. And so I would highly recommend that if you're a developer or thinking about getting into development, specifically in this county, or just as a general framework, this is it. This is the framework of being able to get your project moving forward.
Yeah.
And so let's talk briefly about this property. So what this property is, this is currently a small multi-unit building. There are 3 apartments there, and there's a building that I purchased, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was an owner financed transaction. So when I bought the building, actually a member of my Outback group,
Hmm.
said, "Hey, I've got this project and I really don't know how to get it moving forward." And I said, "Well, how it went was we got the owner of the property on the line. Her and her husband at the time were in Florida. Wonderful conversation. Turns out that we have this connection together around, quite frankly, landmark education.
Yeah.
Amazing. And we connected and talked about our experiences in this transformative uh, program. And we immediately connected, and she said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, here's what I'd like to do." And so I ended up buying this building. And the way that I financed such that I actually didn't put up any money. I got about $25,000 by buying the building,
Hmm.
because I got a low interest second mortgage above and beyond the purchase price. So at the closing, I actually ended up with, I think it was more than that. I think it was about $45,000 cash, which
Right.
allowed me the capital to renovate the building a little bit and have some capital reserves. Today, these units are occupied by tenants through an organization called Thrive. And this organization called Thrive is all about helping people and making a difference for people. And if you remember last year, there was that horrible storm that just destroyed so
Yep.
much in Nashville and this area. And so the people living there were they became homeless. So I said, how can I make a difference that's going to be really one that's going to be in service to humanity, to people that'll have me make money and have me feel good. And I'm like, this is it. This is a pathway. So in doing research and sharing with you about the shortage of these types of potential units available, we both got really, really excited about it because here's an opportunity to leave a fabulous potential legacy that'll make a
Yep.
difference for families for years.
Absolutely.
And absolutely. And so, and having you be like doing this research and saying, okay, Corey, you know what? I think we can get what 40 units out of it initially.
Yep.
Okay, maybe get 40 units out of it, and then you saying, you know, let me take another look at this. Let me take another, whack at this thing. And then just disappearing as you do and immersing yourself deeply in the code, understanding the rules, understanding who wrote the thing, how it was written, what was the mindset when they wrote the thing, and then coming up with an answer, meaning this conditional zoning project schedule. Here's how we do it here.
Yep.
And that's pretty much what you do everywhere.
Yes. That
You
is.
dig in and you dig in and it's like and is it safe to say that your best clients are people that actually follow instruction versus
My
yeah.
new clients, I do a lot of listening, and I have to explain because I'm not a doctor. I don't know exactly how to pick a great doctor. I don't. People who aren't in the building business, I don't know. I've seen so many cases, and a lot of my litigation work that I advise on comes from people that just didn't know what they didn't know.
Mm,
And so it's important to be as informative as I can be on the front end about the
yes.
challenges and pitfalls that can happen if we don't play our cards just at the right place at the right time.
And what's the impact of that?
The impact is that I've made a career, for me, the impact is I've made a career out of being an architect that cared about the budget, that cared about the schedule, because my clients were going to be in trouble if this project went south. And that's how I got started in this whole notion of getting to the bottom of what could trip this up. What could be what's out there that could cause my client to not be a repeat client.
Mm, mm, mm,
And
mm.
and it I figured that out.
Yes. Yeah, you have absolutely figured that out, my friend. And I am uh above and beyond any business. I love your perspective, how your brain thinks, what you look for, and just you're an artist. This is your
Thank you.
canvas.
That's a
This is your canvas.
praise indeed. Thank you from you. That's praise indeed. From
It's
someone I really
inspired.
look up to and respect for all you've done and all we've shared over the years, and how much I've gotten from you. And it's made a big, big difference in what I do and how I think about the world. And I thank you for that. You've been a
Well, I
mentor,
think,
truly.
Frank, it's mutual. We have a you can we love one another, and we admire each other for our unique skills and talents. I am clear that I can't draw a stick man to save my life. And you are very much Leonardo da Vinci when it comes around to technical drawings and understanding how things work and and taking apart the watch as you've done here in sharing this. And this I think is a very clear, and I'm looking at this guide. And so the next really would be um, the pre-application and
Yep.
testing the water, as you say. And so I think that we need to create what we need to create together,
Yep.
engagement agreement, discuss all the things we need to discuss.
Yep.
I believe that here's a question I was going to ask, which was about changes in value based upon zoning changes.
Yes.
So currently, so when I apologize for being distracted by your brain and how you think. It's big. And so this is currently a kind of an L-shaped 3-unit building with a garage that is over the lot line, was not built in accordance to code. It was over the lot line into the alley by about 2 feet.
Hmm.
And it's an alley that is not used. It's a 1924 non-abandoned alleyway.
Yep.
And as part of the condition of this, the city will abandon it for us for a period of time.
Hmm.
And so it's currently 3 units, although could be 9. It's
Hmm.
actually allowable to have 9 units on there. Where they would go, I don't know. I have no interest in putting another 6 units on the property. It just wouldn't, it would lose its appeal.
Right.
And that's not the long-term highest and best use of this property. The highest and best use of this property is what you're speaking to, which is a higher density and a higher capacity for this type of 55 plus residents living in a beautiful, safe, secure environment on a bike path, walking distance from downtown, half a dozen grocery stores in the area, bars, restaurants, shops, libraries, entertainment, coffee shops, places to gather. It's a community-centric location. And by changing the use of this, let's say it's not developed by us, but what we have done and what we have done is we've altered zoning, allowing for 90 units.
Hmm.
So a 90-unit building with some economy of scale of say $300 a square foot
Yep.
as a number from a development standpoint, it's about $30 million, right?
Right.
And so that's going to require some capital, X amount of dollars up front, um, and then some type of bank financing. In the
Hmm.
absence of that, what do you feel or think the change in value of the land now becomes, going from currently 3 units to now an approved use of 90?
Well, it's if we have that entitled, um, the way I've seen it in my career happen, when people, I've been involved in these entitlements, and then the developer or landowner decides, I'm not going to build it, but someone who's in the business of building these, and that's all they do, knows how to do this quick, they knows how to do a great product inexpensively, suddenly is going to be very interested in making a very nice and handsome offer on this land.
Right. And it's saying that the value currently based upon it's commercial, although it doesn't exceed 4 units. So it's not considered commercial as it relates to the number of units,
Right.
right? It's 3 units. And so, but based upon the current cash flow, the current cash flow of these 3 units is around for $4,500. Let's say it's $50,000 a year.
Hmm.
uh, Adding in some building value, building, and depending upon what capitalization rate you're using for that, it's probably around 580 to $600,000 as a
Yep.
current value, the way it sits right now.
Your basis now is around 600, you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
in a value
Yep,
perspective. And
yep,
so, and so by having 90 potential units with an average valuation of say $1,500 a month, now we're talking about a different type of animal completely, right? We're talking about a
yep,
different kind of animal completely, different
absolutely.
kind of cash flow. This is hedge fund kind of stuff. And
That's
there
right.
are a lot of
This
families
is
that become,
institutional. This would be an institutional investor. Yeah,
yeah, this is,
it's somewhere in the picture, is my
yeah,
experience.
very good. Yeah, indeed. Very, very good. Well, I just want to once again acknowledge you, my friend, for the brilliant work and the thought, and thank you for disappearing and going into a deep dive and finding out
Yep,
the answers of this thing. And thank you. And I'm excited to include you in this. Include you, obviously, this is work that's heavy lifting. And I know you'll be with me every step of the way.
you bet.
And together we'll cross this finish line.
You
And
bet.
so I want to also acknowledge, you, if you've been able to successfully listen to these two knuckleheads, or at least this one knucklehead, talk for this period of time for so long about this, thank you for listening and watching this. And I'm really, really curious to know what you've learned. And I would love to see your comments, your thoughts. I would be happy to make an introduction to this fantastic man for any of your projects. And so please comment below. You can direct me. You can put your contact information in there, and I will absolutely follow up with you. And I want to say thank you very much for watching, and we will be updating you as the weeks progress on this project. Hang on, Frank. I'm going to stop the video, and we're going to continue.
Okay.